All right. Good morning, everybody. Of course, I need to stop this transcription because I can't stand that. All right. There we go. Got rid of that. All right. So we seem to be having a few tech problems, which is no worries. I'll go ahead and get us started. And if anyone wants to join in, that's cool. I'm here looking like a little bit of a weirdo.
Are you able to hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you
Okay,
now.
I joined on my phone. My computer microphone, I don't know why it's not working. So I'm here now.
All right, great. Great to see ya. No, I was having trouble with my computer this morning too, and I started to freak out because Tuesdays I have all kinds of meetings. So, welcome. All right, so today's topic is what is it? Oh, practicing coaching skills or counseling skills. So many of you are up to your third video, which I hope you're enjoying. we don't always enjoy recording the videos as much as we do watching other people's videos. I don't know about y'all, but I'm finding them entertaining. So Olivia, since you signed up to join today, you want to just introduce yourself or maybe say, some people have said like, this was the only one I could fit in or whatever. Was there something that brought you specifically to this conversation or?
Um, this is the only one that worked for my
Yeah,
schedule,
that's right.
but I also like the prompt about giving advice because
Hmm.
people have told me that I'm good at giving advice, which makes it hard sometimes maybe in this class
Oh,
because that's my nature is to help out and give advice. So I think it would be interesting.
yeah. What do you, when they say you're good at giving advice, what do you think they mean?
I don't know. A lot of my friends and family come to me with a lot of their various problems. So I don't know. I don't really try to give advice. It just kind of happens, which could be a problem. So,
Not necessarily. I mean, think about, so do you mind processing it a little bit? Like how, when someone's talking to you, what kinds of advice do you think you give them?
I like to find myself to be I kind of look at the positive. So I try and help them look at the positive and give them kind of ideas of maybe good outcomes that could happen from a problem. And usually
Mhm.
people like hearing that, and usually it does work too.
Exactly, right? So it doesn't sound like you're saying you should do this. You're saying like, well, maybe you need to listen to your gut, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe you do need to think about the positives a little bit. So that's like sounds like advice, but it's supporting other people in
Yeah.
doing what they actually want to do, which I do think is probably a little bit different. And when you're talking about friends and family, there's a totally different relationship there than some stranger, right? That's
Yeah.
paying us to do that work. So yeah, cool. So how have you found yourself like really struggling to avoid it, like in the role plays, or you just did it now? I just planted a seed that makes you feel bad about yourself every time you have an opinion.
No, I've kind of used some techniques instead of me automatically saying something, I go with it. You know, the head nod or interject a couple of oh yeah, I could see where you're coming there from there and stuff like that. So it's become easier.
Yeah, I know it feels like muffling yourself though, right? Like I'm gonna suck on this piece of candy, so I
Yeah.
try not to say something. Yeah, that one can be really tricky. How have you found the role plays in general?
I liked them at first. I was not really too sure, but I just did the third one, second
Hmm.
one,
Yep.
and it's definitely better. I've asked different people to help me, and they're like, "What? You want me to do what?" But then when we do it, they're like, "Oh wait, that wasn't so bad." I'm like, "Yeah, I know."
Yeah, I know
So
the
it's
idea as the generations shift, right? But there's always this like, you want me to do what and put it on YouTube? And
yeah,
it's like, I promise they are
yeah,
unlisted and no one sees
yeah,
them except us, and everybody is pretty kind generally. So
yeah.
good. All right. Well, any questions or other thoughts, or you don't have to carry the whole conversation. I can continue it, but
I don't think so.
all right. Um, hmm. I do think the role play scenarios aren't perfect, but I think they're meant to be slightly problematic so that people do struggle just a little bit, right? Because if I made them real easy, like, oh, I'm trying to get some more physical activity, what can I do, right? Or, oh, I'm trying to, then it comes up a lot more. So they were meant to be multifaceted so that we have to think a little bit about, oh gosh, how might I do this? And I'm somebody that my mouth is fast. One of my really good colleagues says that my mouth moves faster than my brain, which I don't think she meant as a compliment, but I kind of took it that way. So when I know there's an uncomfortable situation, I practice it just to make sure that I'm thinking about all the ways the other person might be interpreting what I'm saying or might not be able to hear it the way I intend it. And we have a neighbor situation, right? Their tree keeps falling on things in our yard. And now they have a mama raccoon with 3 babies living underneath their
Oh
shed.
no.
So I was teasing with my spouse this morning. I'm like, well, he goes, well, we should just write them a letter. And I'm like, right. And it's going to start like, okay, your tree keeps ruining. And now there's a raccoon in my yard that's putting my dog. And he's like, not like that. And I said, I know. I just got to
That's
get
what
the
you would
thoughts
want
out.
to say, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, just gotta get the thoughts out because yeah, I don't want them to just think, well, she's a crank. But it is their problem and it is causing us a problem, and we should just knock on the door. I'm like, how we live in Ravenna. Like when people knock on my door, I don't answer.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure that that's the way either. But in any case, so yeah. And then I want to say like, can you just clean up this mess? Which is not how someone's going to react positively, right? So sometimes thinking through that, but then in a helping situation or every now and then, I mean, gosh, when I first started teaching here in 1997, students would raise their hand and I'd think, oh crap, like, what are they going to ask me? Am I going to be able to answer that? And when I started health coaching at first, it was similar. Some of these people come and they're just so burdened and they maybe also need like a therapist or a counselor. It's not all just the health coaching stuff. And they start to ask you the questions and kind of like you said, when you feel like you do have, I mean, I feel like I have good advice. I really know how to help people. And so learning how to refrain can be very complicated, especially when you're thinking like on the fly, like, oh gosh, this person just asked me this. And now what do I say? And so similar to in my teaching, thinking about ways in which we can give ourselves an opportunity to pause before we respond. Like, oh wow, yeah, that's an interesting, let me think. Or I don't know, what did you think I was going to say when you asked me that question? Or, whatever can also help give that space. Have you found just the sitting back to be nice?
Yeah, it definitely is because like you think less. I feel like you're still like thinking of what they're saying, but you can actually listen instead of like, oh gosh, what am I gonna say next? Like the advice. So it's easier to understand what they're saying, I think.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I feel like people, and at least on my Instagram feed, harass us with that. Like if you're listening to respond, you're not listening. And it's like, except the person expects a response. So stop being a jerk. You got to listen for both. But yeah, I find an immense amount of freedom in just the like, all right, tell me what you want to talk about, and then following the other person, which I think is another anxiety that students often have at the beginning of the course. Like, how am I supposed to know how to do this already? I'm here to learn how to do it. And it's like, you're here to practice actually just listening and helping the other person. And so there it's like the friends and family that you all ask, I owe an apology to, right? Because they're the ones that have to do all the work. But it's just fake work, right? They can make it up or sometimes they're real. And I don't know, some of the videos are making me laugh hysterically. But I'm like, wait, did they do the assignment though? And having to sort of get in there. Yeah, Pete is saying their daughter has been great. Yeah, some of the partners are lovely. And then I'm a little jealous because I'm old now and I haven't had relationships with parents for a very long time. So those of you that can sit with your parents also, I just get so enamored by just how sweet your relationships are and that you have access in that way, which can be kind of fun. But yeah, then sometimes I'm like, great boyfriend, great sister, great little brother. I'm like, tell him I said thank you. So that part can be a little weird. I think the other time things can get a little bit funky. I was grading the implicit biases this morning, and I need to put, I always try to say like, hey, lighten up on yourselves. It's a psychologically demanding exercise. A lot of us end up feeling badly about the results. Feeling badly is not something I want anybody to do, but I think when we feel badly about a bias that is a reflection on us that like, ooh, I don't like that. My brain works that way. But our brains are programmed to work a certain way, right? I think even about the time, like sometimes at the drive-through when I'm getting my Dunkin' in the morning, they say, have a great day. And I say, no, thank you. Because I was expecting them to say like, can I get you anything else? Or, the conditioned response to things like you sneeze and you say, bless you, or you say, I love you. And someone says, I love you too. And it's like, do you? I don't know. Were you just responding to me or did you mean that? So those conditioned responses, I think, are things that can help us as well. And learning the ways our neurotransmitters are working in our brain can be a little bit obnoxious, especially I have a lot of friends and family in my life who struggle with different mental health, issues like bipolar, ADHD, and where thoughts are literally getting stuck in their brains in a certain cycle. And it's literally the neural pathways. Somebody very close to me just went through some rounds of ECT, which is a little bit old school, but literally electroconvulsive therapy that literally puts an electric charge in the brain, causes a seizure as well, but realigns the neurotransmitters and allows them to remake themselves or to repair themselves. The science behind it is kind of, I don't know, it's a lot of things at the same time. It's alarming, but also like really cool. I'm like, I could use some stronger neural pathways in my brain. And so when we are rubbed up against that bias or that thing we didn't realize our brain was going to normally go to, it just becomes this kind of habit that we think in that way instead of like interrupting it so that we can really sit with it and understand what's going on. And especially since, at least in my opinion, our culture has gotten a lot less friendly lately. Everybody's really mad and every offense is like supremely serious. And I'm not saying that some of them shouldn't be, but I think we've lost the little bit of like grace and ability to make a mistake and the worry about, I guess we'd call that cancel culture, right? Like we're so worried about the whole universe coming at us because that can happen, especially if our gaffe is on social media or something where then everybody is responding. It can make us feel even more hypersensitive to saying something or doing something that we might not be proud of or we might not think reflects our actual values. And so those are the comments I've been writing for people as I graded, like try not to be so hard on yourself. It's good to see what it is. And then it's also good to know so that we can do the work if necessary, of just realigning or thinking a little bit before we say it. I'm someone that works in sexual health, but it took me a minute to be able to accept, not from a value standpoint, but just how my brain worked, like they, them pronouns. At first for me, I'm like, well, that's plural. I don't know. That just kind of doesn't, and then it's embarrassing to say that out loud, but it was like, it just took a minute would not be appropriate, right? But it took me a little while just to learn to say the words without it feeling in my brain wrong. I always felt for the person it was fine and whatever, but in my brain it still felt grammatically like I'm 50, right? So I still, oh, my next meeting, he's so cute, he's already waiting. It still felt like what was I saying? Oh, I still use like punctuation in my texts because I'm old. And I'm like, well, if you don't put punctuation, how are you supposed to know? And I have a friend who, like, I set the phone down and then it instantly started ringing. And I'm like, what is happening? She goes, you put a period. What's wrong? And I'm like, I always put a period. It's the end of a sentence. I wasn't trying to signal something, right? But there again, like just a thing that she was sensitive to because she works with high school kids. So she's hipper than I am to the trends. And I didn't even realize I had triggered a reaction or a response when I wasn't intending to. So similar, but, kind of different. And so just learning where those spots are can also help us because, again, depending on what we're dealing with a client, there are different levels of how our reaction and our responses might affect them. I noticed when my nieces were aging, some of my childhood traumas like resurfacing, right? Where my brain automatically was like, the fuck did you just say to me? Right? Which is how my mother would have reacted, which is how parents don't react anymore unless they want children's services involved, right? And then I'm like, why is my brain so rude to these girls? Like, I love them so much. And it's like, oh, because that would, and now, I don't know what they call these, Olivia. If you'd like to educate me, you can. There's like videos on Instagram where like there's my favorite one right now is contemporary parents saying to their kids, and I love the Love on the Spectrum. So there's even one of the kids on the spectrum doing it. And it's like, stop crying or, and then you wait to see what the kid answers. And then my generation is, I'll give you something to cry about. Or like, and my parents were struggled with their mental health and were also pretty like, had very different values about it was just abusive. Let's just be honest. It was just abusive. And so it was, you know, they were even harsher in my family. But oh, so cute to hear kids say now, like, stop crying, or, and it was like, I'll give you a hug. It was like, no, it was, I'll give you something to cry about, or don't make me stop the car, you know, those kinds of things. And is that called something, Olivia, where the younger generation makes fun of the older generation? I guess is what's going on here, right?
Yeah, no, I don't know, but I've seen that on TikTok. A lot of like influencers will do that with their kids, and it's like, see, I'm not an abusive parent. Like they have loving responses.
Yeah, and hilarious because back then no one thought it was abuse, right? They just thought they were
Mhm.
raising kids. And then we were like, wait, turns out when you're yelled at and people are mean to you and all of the things, it doesn't make you feel real great as an adult. So, anyways, again, those just automatic brain responses, right? With then my older niece, I had to say to her, like, I have to just explain to something to you as she got a little bit older. Like, the parenting of me was a little, and I'm noticing my brain is, and then also I only ever have dogs. And so sometimes I'd be like, no, 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 like, like they're not dogs, Lori, they're children. So, anyways, maybe it's a good thing I never had human children because maybe said children's services and I would have been well acquainted with each other, which is all right, inappropriate humor. All right. Well, I love all the videos. I love all the practice. Thank you so much for joining me this morning, Olivia. I appreciate you. And everyone else here too, not to be slight anybody. So keep up the great work. We're hitting the end of the semester. They go by so fast in the summer. And I think I fixed the errors with the video playlists and those kinds of things. But I know yesterday the link was right. But we had a dental emergency. You know, gotta love those weekend. You know, my spouse woke up on Saturday looking like a chipmunk. So we had to go to urgent care on Saturday and then the surgeon yesterday morning to get a tooth pulled. So anyway, so I didn't get to my computer as early as I normally would have. So the link was right, but there was only a removed video on there. So they should all be on there now. But just keep emailing me if you have problems. I'm here, even if I'm not always automatically in the space. So, all right, well, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording and let my friends in the room off the hook.